this is a Dimension 20 t-shirt. Welcome to Your Writing Sucks. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But the good news is we can fix it, and that's what this is about. I'm Jen, I'm a lead content designer, and I've been in content design for almost a decade now. And I love it. It's one of those things that I kind of fell into about 10 years ago, and I've seen all the good that it can do and how writing accessibly and well for people can help people do things, can help people understand each other. It does a lot of good. It might sound a bit pretentious, but stay with me, all right? It's important. But I've seen a lot of stuff lately where you can just see where people are miscommunicating, and there are better ways to go about that. You see plenty of, you might get letters from people. You might see emails, possibly from the Has Been Hotel guys, or you might just see like web content, and we've all seen those Twitter posts that have made us raise an eyebrow. That's all I'm saying. This is for content designers. Maybe you're just getting started out on your journey. I've mentored a lot of content designers in my time. I know, unbelievable. So hopefully there'll be some stuff that you can pick up. It's for anybody that wants to write anything, particularly online content. So if you've got a website, if you've got a newsletter, if you just write nice things on Twitter, it's still called Twitter in my heart. I think I've more shifted over to Blue Sky now anyway. But the deal is, I want to make everybody's content that little bit better. But I'm going to impart to you much of the knowledge I have gained over the last 10 years. I sound like that lady in Titanic. It's been 84 years. And if anyone can take anything away from that, then so much the better. And I know what you're thinking. Gin, I like it. Picasso. What's it going to cost me? It is going to cost one of your single hits of the subscribe button. I'm starting this from scratch. So if you could do me a solid and hit the subscribe button. If you've got any questions about best practice or how you might tackle a negative contraction or something like that, feel free to pop that down in the comments, and I'll happily look at stuff like that. Maybe I'll address it in future videos. I will get to contractions and negative contractions, don't you worry. It's a personal pet peeve. So yeah, that's what we're about. Let's crack on with the first episode, shall we? Okay, Content 101. Let's start, as any good content designer would, at the beginning. Fair warning, I have got ADHD. I don't know how structured these videos are going to be. It's going to be wherever my little brain takes us. Okay, so what is content design? What is a content designer? Content design is very much kind of like a specialism in making sure that whatever a user needs to do on your service, a user can do, right? So the number one rule of any content design practice is user needs. What do your users need before you do anything else? Before you put a single word down into your word processor or content management system. I don't know why I'm talking like the BBC. Can't mention brands. Before you put a single word down, you need to be worried about what is it that your users want to achieve with your service. So you might have a website. I've got one of those. I've got a couple, actually. And as far as you're concerned, that website might solely be about, right, this is how people contact me. This is how they see my stuff. However, if there is somebody who is, say, a fan of yours, if you're a content creator, and you've got people that want to contact you, for example, how would they go about that? If someone is going to your website, what's the number one thing that they want to see from you? If you're a big streamer, perhaps they want to know, okay, when are you streaming next? I'd like to catch you. How do I contact you? What are your social media handles? Admittedly, this is harder if you're not a business with all of the infrastructure that you can put in place to do this. But in an ideal world, you would ask people things. You would ask your user base what it is that they need of you. So if in the example that you're a big streamer, perhaps you've got a Discord with your community in it. So you might ping a question to your community and say, okay, I'm setting up my website. What is it that you want to see? And people will tell you. People will happily tell you what it is that they're after. And then it's your job as a newly minted content designer to provide users with what it is that they want and what they're trying to achieve. Content design itself has got quite an interesting history, I think. It mostly seemed to have sprung out of sort of governmental reform. So in the very, very old days, you might remember that every government department essentially had its own website. If you wanted to go to the NHS, you'd go to the NHS website. If you wanted to go to the DVLA, you'd go to the DVLA's website. But then if you then need to do something with HMRC, you'd go to HMRC's website. And it was Government Digital Service who sort of came to do a big old rethink about how people looked at government websites. It was this big old project, and they wanted to try and bring every single government department into one big service, which as we now know is gov.uk, and they had to work with a lot of departments to try and transition all of their content that they'd had on other websites onto gov.uk. But, and this is another important lesson of being a content designer, obviously you don't want to just lift everything you've got off an old website and just put it on a new website. You need to make sure that it's still relevant. The advice that you're giving, is that still up to date? Is that still something that people want to see? Is there a user need for it? So they started to transition all of these websites onto gov.uk as a big sort of wholesale thing. And as they were doing that, I think they started to really think about how we consider content as a whole. So being a content designer, which is the term that they decided was the correct term, and I agree with that, it's designing content, it's not just writing content. So it's not just about the words, a lot of it is about the words. But we put a lot of consideration into how things are set out on a page, what a user journey looks like, which we'll go on to a bit later. But, you know, in short, a user journey is sort of how somebody navigates through your service. What are the pages they click on? What links do they click on? How do they get from A to Z? Or A to Z for my American friends. Which, by the way, I will say this. Should have said this up top, but here we are now. While a lot of this will be directed towards a sort of British English-speaking audience, I will maintain that the principles behind content design can be applied to any language. Americans, if you would like to remove extraneous hues from your words, then you go right ahead. It's more about the accessibility and the inclusivity and the clearness of stuff that we're really focusing on here. And it's the kind of principles that you could absolutely translate into any language. In fact, if you go on gov.uk, and I'll say this as a Welshie, there's plenty of Welsh language content on gov.uk, and that's all been designed exactly the same way. So yes, as Government Digital Service, GDS as we're going to call them, GDS were looking at the sort of job role that they would be doing. That sort of evolved into being a content designer because it was looking at the whole of something and how everything works together to just make that service work nicely and let people do the thing is basically the ethos there. If somebody is going onto gov.uk, it is to do a thing. If I want to tax my car, what's the quickest way to get onto a web page, tax my car and leave, right? It's a service. It's also why a user of gov.uk is considered a user. They're not a customer. They're not there to buy something. They're there to use a service and then leave. It's the goal is to get somebody to do the thing that they want to do as quickly as possible, and then they can just get on with their day, right? That's the goal, because that's what they need. That's what they want. And it's your job to kind of provide that. Now, you know, I can't speak for GDS. I've never worked for GDS. But I think for them, just from reading their blogs and all of their communications, I think it was quite important for them, for people to be able to see that content wasn't just about words. Digital content has got a lot of power behind it. There are a lot of moving parts that can all work together to create something quite useful. I think they really wanted to show people that content wasn't just words. Like, digital content has got a lot of moving parts. There are images, there are links. There's a lot of user testing that we can do to see what people want. The way that content is set out, or how content and images work together. You know, they really overhauled the whole system. And it's really impressive because people didn't really write the way that GDS were promoting. GDS's language, and we'll get onto their style guide a bit later. But the way that GDS's style guide came about, you know, it was arguably a lot clearer and a lot friendlier than government had previously been writing to people. You know, I think in the old days, and I put myself in this category, I think we did used to write in quite a sort of staid, authoritarian way. You're talking with government. And I think that's just the way that it was done, 15 years ago even. So with hindsight, it was quite a radical shift to turn around and say, no, we don't write like that. We write, for an average reading age of 9, for example. And we put words into clear language, and we don't try and deliberately confuse people by throwing in long, fancy words. Because there's plenty of research and there's evidence for this, which is the backbone, essentially, of everything that the GDS Style Guide is. There's evidence that even if you are somebody that is incredibly intelligent and you're a lawyer and you're reading big, long tomes of legalese every day, if you're looking for information, you prefer that in a clear, concise manner anyway, because you've got so much extra stuff to read that being able to just get to the information you want immediately, it clears up your days. So there was no downside in terms of, it was more accessible for people that needed it to be more accessible. It was clearer for people in general. It helped everybody do the thing that they wanted to do quickly. And if you were a super intelligent Albert Einstein type, then it made your job easier because you were able to find the information you needed a lot quicker. Content Design London, who are an organisation I also really like, they've got some really good blogs on the startup of gov.uk. And there is a blog written by Sarah Winters on the 28th of August 2016, just to give you an idea of how long this has been going on. But there's a lovely quote in this blog post, which I will link below if you want to read it. And Sarah was asked a question. Tom said to me, what's content going to look like in this new world? I'd had years of frustration. Now I had a blank sheet. I said, 1, users need it. 2, we create it. 3, it's fact-checked by expert, not signed off. 4, we publish. And I think that's a really lovely, concise way of saying exactly what your job is. You're not just writing content because you want to tell somebody something. You're identifying a need that somebody has and you're catering to that need. The fact-checked comment is very amusing to me because absolutely, it's always been the case that I think a lot of businesses are very keen on a sign-off process, and a lot of the time things aren't needed to be signed off. They are needed to be fact-checked, and I think that's a very different distinction. Because again, the kind of environment you're fighting against, quite frequently there will be people that just want to say a thing. They just want to add in their 2 cents to something because I feel important. I've told you to change something. And fact checking is different in the sense that because you're a content designer, you know how things should be written. That is your specialism. That is the thing that you are good at. And then somebody higher than you that goes, I think we should say this, and it's, if it's passive language, for example, you know why you shouldn't be doing that. You might not know yet, but you will do. So yeah, fact checking is really important in the sense that things need to be accurate for sure. And you want to involve people from policy, you want to involve people from legal, just to make sure that what you're saying is correct. However, for example, people in policy and legal, they have a very different specialism. They're excellent at knowing, say, what the legal ramifications are of something, or they're excellent at knowing what you're saying isn't accurate. And those are really, really valuable skills, and I don't want to diminish that at all. It always involves those people. But your specialisms are different. So your focus is on making something as user-friendly as possible. Their specialism is on making something is as accurate as possible. And both of you together will make sure that your thing works well. So that's kind of a condensed history of where content design came from. But you'll see that there's been so much value seen from content designers content designing that You'll see now that it's in a lot of businesses. There is an incredible amount of content design jobs just in the private sector. I think a lot of people have really started to realize the value of it. Because even if someone isn't coming to you for a service, if someone is coming to you to buy something, you being able to get them from nothing to here is the thing you want to buy and I'm able to sell you. Doing that as quickly as possible is beneficial to everybody. If I want to buy a phone and I'm able to get from nothing to buying a phone within 3 clicks, I'm going to think much more favourably of your company than I am if I have to go around in circles or things break or I can't understand what it is that you're asking me. If you've asked me so many questions that have just confused me and I've gone, oh, I give up, I can't be bothered, I'll look again tomorrow, you've lost a sale. So I think that it's very much a sort of forgive-give situation. Nobody loses, and that's what I love about it.
Hi YouTube. New day, new t-shirt, new chair. What a nerd. One of the important skills of being a content designer is knowing how to edit. So, know when to cut stuff down. So, this is why I'm here. So, because that video was getting on, I'm actually going to cut it into 2. I go through the example of Vodafone's user journey in terms of how they do it. They didn't come off brilliantly. I basically content designed the whole way through. So I thought I'd save that for later. But I hope that you enjoyed the beginning of this series. As I said up top, my real goal with this is to basically make this information as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. So if this video helped you at all, or this is the kind of thing that you're hoping to see more of and you're hoping to learn a bit more about, then like the stuff, leave a comment, you know how it all works. We're trying to get YouTube on board for making this as accessible to as many people as possible. And your likes, comments, subscribes, all do all of that good stuff. Genuinely though, any sort of content questions or anything like that, or anything that you want to see more of as this series develops, then feel free to drop that down below. I'm really excited to see where this series goes. I think it'd be nice to finally get all this knowledge and information out of my head and bestow it upon the internet where you guys can just run with it and we'll beat the AI by being better writers than them. Also, spoiler, it's not just about the words. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I've left a little blooper at the end for you. But I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll be back with roasting Vodafone very shortly. This has been Your Writing Sucks, but hopefully a little less than it did before.
I love that it's not noise gazing at the dog. Let's attack my car. I'm sure he's doing it on purpose.